This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
What's up, Power Athletes? It's that time again. We got a great show for you. I'm sitting here with Luke, Steve, Tex, and the man himself, John Wellborn. How you guys doing?
What's going on?
We're good.
Doing good. What's up, Denny? What's up, gang?
Just getting ready to rock and roll. Luke, I suppose before we get into like the nuts and bolts of the show, how did the Balboa Jack team do over the competition this past weekend?
Well, we won best team name. And
of course you did. Of course you did, right?
That was clearly due to a lot of the help from Power Athlete Nation. And so everybody out there who voted for that was awesome. It was cool to get called out. This is the first time. I mean, John, when was the last time Balboa did like a team? Wasn't it the games?
Yeah, 2010 CrossFit Games.
So since 2010, this is the first time Balboa really did a team competition. And I guess, needless to say, there's a couple of things that worked against us in the sense that 4 out of 8 of our athletes don't train CrossFit. And it was Callie, myself, Ben, and our other coach, Chris, and we don't really CrossFit. We're on a completely different kind of traditional CrossFit or competitive CrossFit. We just have a different mindset, different approach. 3 out of the 8 were female athletes who had never competed before. So going in, we had a lot working against us. But as soon as we got there, everybody just kind of unplugged. And as soon as that first workout started, our team, which was me, Chris, and Ashley and Aaron, we were I guess I'd call us the JV squad. But our big thing that we prepared with was execution. The signaling, who's going to do what, who's going to be the captain of this workout. And it was great, man. Our team ended up finishing like 40th place. And then the varsity team, which was Callie and Ben, and then the student Dave and one of our athletes, Meredith, they finished top 20, something like that. But there were some ridiculous teams out there, like some games level teams. And we had, the whole goal for us was just to change the training stimulus. And, like we said before, it was more of a community stunt for our gym. We had a lot of new clients. We wanted to get them out there, see that you can turn up your intensity if you just pay a little more attention. And we sincerely think that'll, assuming the movement is good, which is what we enforce in our gym, you add that intensity or that competitive element to your training, and you're going to get the results that you're looking for, especially if it's, aesthetics based or weight loss. And that's what a lot of our clients are at our gym for.
I actually showed up as a spectator and had to leave. I was not asked to leave, but I got a lot of dirty looks. Something I'm not going to deal with very well is really crappy coaching, or I'm not crappy coaching, but some crappy judging. And I felt that our guys were getting singled out a little bit. They had some options for the workouts, and our guys chose to go heavier. And we got kind of no counted on some things. And at just a local competition where people are having a good time, to just no count people for some ticky-tack stuff. Like I could see like either get it or don't get it, but. Things like when Dave was doing his snatches, he didn't bring his feet together. He wasn't moving his feet. He was just snatching it. The guy actually wanted him to move his feet and bring them together. And at that point, I started kind of yelling at the judge a little bit. And, the problem I have is I don't give a shit if it's CrossFit competition or chess, playing football, lifting weights. I don't like to lose. And I have a hard time kind of differentiating between those two. So at that point, I was like, kind of started yelling at him a little bit. And then I was like, you know what, it's better if I leave.
Well, here's the deal. Okay. We were in the first 5 heats, our teams went off, and they went over the standards, and we adhered to the standards as they announced them. Okay. Specifically, one of the workouts had toes to bar. And during your toes to bar, an athlete of the opposite gender needed to be hanging on the bar while one athlete was doing their toes to bar. Okay.
That sounds horrible.
Well,
I'm
in the
with
middle,
you. I hear you.
we saw athletes, or the varsity squad, Ben's squad, saw athletes of same gender on the bar doing toes to bar, so they did it, and they got no reps. Okay. Then after that, there was heats that were blatantly violating that standard. And one of our athletes approached the judges and the guys, the MCs and the guys who organized the event. And they're like, hey, we got no reps, 8 reps, because we had the same gender on the bar, but these guys are smashing it. And the guy's just like, well,
It is what it is.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's bullshit. That's not, and kind of put up a fuss about it. Well, I think, what we did is kind of dig our own grave there, because as soon as we did that snatch workout, so that it was our floater workout, which was a 2-minute, as many calories as possible on a ski erg, like kind of like a C2 ski erg. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's
Oh, they're
Absolutely.
terrible.
Yeah. So it was 2 minutes, as many calories as possible on that. And then right after that, you had to transition directly to snatches. And
Oh,
the weights were for men 75 pounds, 155 pounds, or 185 pounds.
So you had a choice, and
So
then
you-
it was for max tonnage, and so the guys all selected to go heavier because that's what we do. We lift heavy weights, and I was just amazed at the all of a sudden the head judge lady comes over and takes over for the one judge, and dude, it just starts no counting these guys, and like dude, they were solid lifts, man. These guys are snatching it up no problem, and like little things like the guy kept telling Ben, open your hips at the top. What he should have said is close your hips at the top. So Ben is looking at the guy confused, and he's no counting him, and Ben has no idea why he's no counting him.
Yeah.
He kept telling him open his hips, and then they no counted Dave, which by saying he wasn't bringing his feet together at the top of the snatch. And I'm like looking at this dude, and I just kind of started screaming. I'm like, let the kids play, dude. We're here to have a good time. You know what?
I
Like,
love it.
I realize you guys are trying to enforce the standards, but it's like, come on, dude. This isn't the CrossFit Games. Like, dude, this is some like local throwdown in the gym, and you guys are trying to be fucking assholes on it. At which point, I'm like, you know what? I'm out of here. It just looked bullshit to me, and I don't like to see my guys who train hard lose, and I don't like to lose, and I don't like to be associated with it. So, it's just best if I go home.
And
But it was a great event.
a couple of the reps were a couple
Sounds
of
like
the reps.
Hey, let me ask you guys a question. What was on the line?
Like $1,000 or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah, but
It
I
was
mean,
peanuts.
the other thing I was a little upset about is all the food trucks. How come they don't serve carbs at these events? Like I went over the food truck, all they had was like hamburgers and vegetables. I'm like, you know what? Like these dudes are out here slaving. I'm like, can we get some churros for these guys? Can we get some maybe some potatoes, like a French fry? I mean, something.
Yeah.
I even asked the guy. I'm like, dude, you got to give me something more than this. I'm like, dude, you're killing me over here. And the guy's like, oh, we don't serve carbs at these events. People don't like carbs. And I'm like, God damn it. Bring some
people are
carbs to
stupid.
these events.
Yeah.
So where did they get these judges from? Was it
I'm
Was
sure
it
they're
the
volunteers.
box itself?
They're volunteers, so you can't really bitch at people like who are volunteers that are out there that are taking part. The thing that, and I guess all this stuff is so subjective, but you know what? Like, it's kind of like in the NFL. I mean, one strange call and a team wins and a team loses, like all of a sudden these guys miss, a few reps and it equals, 1,000 pounds. And next thing you know, they go from being first or second or winning that event to, being 20th because that's how tight the competition is. So, that's the problem. You're always going to run into these things and, there's money on the line and, we got our event coming up this weekend and, I expect, I'm actually going to go up to this one and you know what, I expect that people, do what they need to do and you have good judges and, people are competent, but, I really think what happens is that people try to enforce a standard and it's like, okay, so what is it? Should the bar get direct? It's easier to say, take the bar directly and lock it out overhead instead of being, it has to be, it's just, I think what happens is these people try to make it too specialized and it becomes impossible to judge.
Yeah.
Like one of their other things was on the toes to bar, both feet have to contact the bar at the exact same time.
That's
so
so
it's like, I'm watching these people that are doing 1 and 2, both feet are hitting, and it's kind of like, well, they weren't no counting them, but it becomes, And this is my only caveat with these events is they become so specialized with these techniques that they become next to impossible to judge. And then it's like, then you're going to get somebody who upholds it, somebody else who doesn't uphold it. How do I know? I mean, it just, I mean, at that point, it's like, dude, everybody should be there having a good time. But the minute you start putting money on the line, shit's going to get competitive.
And I don't know if you guys, we have a slightly different perspective on the event, being that we run our own rather like pretty successful series. You know, this is one event that they have per year. We're doing 6-10 of these a year. Okay. And the roundtables that we have, we account for this type of stuff for our events. Like when Callie comes up with programming, the primary, what we have to take into account is we have volunteer judges, right? And it's not to, put anything against these people, but you get what you pay for. So the programming has to be conducive to remedial judging, but you have to temper that with the correct weights and the correct reps to get the kind of suffering stimulus that you're looking for. So, but one of the takeaways, I guess, on a positive note, everybody was shattered, just absolutely shattered by 135-pound clean and jerks and 135-pound thrusters and 135-pound lunges for men. And the ladies were just, a lot of them, I'd say majority of them, except for some bigger ladies, were just shaking under 95-pound variations of those movements. And none of our athletes blinked an eye at it. Even our athletes who, it's like 90% of their body weight, they were able to go overhead and pull that weight, no problem. And it was pretty funny. You in our heats, you'd hear, Balboa Jack is falling behind team so-and-so on burpee pull-ups. And then you'd get to clean and jerks, and they're like, Balboa Jack passes that team on clean and jerks, because we could just fly through that stuff. I mean, the weight was not a problem at all. So it was cool to see that the training response of our programming in our gym is clearly biased towards strength and power, not necessarily body weight movements. And you could see us really overtake a lot of the competition on those portions of the events.
And it's probably, for you guys, it's probably rewarding in the sense that you already know that your program is biased towards that, but then to have it come out in some kind of assessment or test is like icing on the cake, right? Like, well, we know we program for that, and guess what? We're good at that. That's cool. That's really cool. Experience with local competitions is like frustration. I don't know if you guys had any regional or games athletes there, but when I go to local competitions, I oftentimes get frustrated because, me being a nobody, ho-dunk old man, I get held to these standards that are, like you said, the feet have to hit exactly at the same time, and it's toes to bar. So if the top of your foot hits, it's a no rep. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Exactly. And then you get these games athletes come in, and they can do it, but they just get the judges are almost like afraid to no rep them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think there is a level of intimidation. I mean, especially if somebody's an elite CrossFit Games competitor, I mean, they come out and some guy's going to, no rep them. I mean, you saw at the SoCal Regional, they had a big deal where, a guy was pissed off that the judge was no counting him and kind of got up in his face, and there was a big deal about it. But I don't know. I mean, Luke hit it best. You get what you pay for. I mean, it's and as, when you design these events, what you have to do is you have to take into account the ability to look at a movement, process the movement, and decide whether or not that movement was a good movement. And the more complex and the more things you add, like, yes, the feet, the top of the toes have to hit the bar exactly the same, it becomes this kind of like, precision marksmanship.
Yeah, you're no longer like that.
Yeah, and it's like, like I always like, okay, ground to overhead. However you got to get there, get it done.
Yeah, because you're not going to penalize someone on a technicality. Yeah. It's about leveling the playing field, and that's where we stick our standards on the team series. It's like
that's why we end it with what we do. I mean, once you get all three teams in there, you know what? Let's push something heavy. I mean, you either can do it or you can't. There's no standard to judge. Winner take all. And the reason we kind of really like that mentality is I don't want somebody to ever win something because somebody else lost on some weird technicality that, it's kind of like, I know this sounds terrible, but when I competed in the CrossFit Games, I have a bone chip in the back of my knee that prevents me from squatting. I can probably get 2 inches below parallel. And then I have a pretty bad, like a bone chip that's like a door stop in my knee. So I get about 2 inches below parallel. And when we went to go do the thruster thing, I showed the judge. I said, dude, this is as deep as I can squat. And I showed him. And he said, that's all you got? I'm like, try to push on it. And he's like, okay. So that's the standard. The very first rep I go, the head judge runs over and no counts me and proceeded to no count me for the first 5 reps. Finally, I stopped and I looked at the dude and I was like, dude, I can't get any deeper. And he looked at him and the head judge looked at him and he was like, dude, the guy showed me and it was something. And it just becomes, dude, I have some physical limitations from my previous job. So, asking me to squat 7 inches below parallel to where my ass hits the ground is not going to happen with a bone chip in the back of my knee. So, I mean, it's like, it is what it is, but, it doesn't mean that the person's not living up to their standards. So I don't know. I mean, when we design our events, I don't want anybody to win or lose based on some technical objective coaching or judging view that it's kind of like I don't remember if you remember the CrossFit Games a couple of years ago, or 2 years ago when they had the Fran deal, and the bar is like 9 feet in the air, and the one girl doing butterfly pull-ups, and from where I was sitting looking at the top of the bar, her chin never cleared the bar, but the judge is standing at the very bottom looking up, and I mean, how is he ever going to judge that?
Right.
And then the girl blows it out and never got her chin over the bar, and I'm sitting there watching it because I'm in the stands, being like, dude, they counted those pull-ups. But yet, the next judge, after that, they stood on boxes and were looking at the top, and they were no counting people. So it's like, how do you have that girl do one event where the judge is at the bottom and then put a judge in a box and have a different standard? And that's what I don't like, dude. I like everybody. You know what? I don't have a problem with the standards. Just hold everybody to the same ones.
And some of that stuff is hard to foresee. So, had the response been a little different from the organizers of this event, like, hey, we're going to take that into consideration. We're going to get back to you. We're going to make changes right away and make an announcement. That would be a different deal rather than it is what it is. And then fucking coming over and, putting us through the grinder on speed snatching 155 pounds, So.
Yeah, so at that point I was like, you know what? It's best before I go. I'm not gonna. Things are just gonna deteriorate for me. So I left.
How was the flow and the time management by the managers?
Dude, I will say they probably have one of the nicer facilities I've ever seen. I think it was a really great organization. Mm-hmm. They had the street blocked off. It was like a street fair. I think they had like a great vibe and they had a great situation. But unfortunately, it is what it is, but it was a great event. And I think these local throwdowns and these competitions are great for building community, getting people out, putting them in a competitive environment. I know there were a lot of CrossFit celebrities there. I think Kenny, what's that kid, finished the games? Kenny Leverage.
Kenny was there.
Kristen Cleaver was there. So I saw some celebrities walking around. It was pretty cool.
But the time management was good too. Everything really ran on time. And it was fun. I mean, I have to say, as a competitor, it was fun. I mean, you're going to feel slighted with kind of this scenario that we went through. But I'll be honest with you, I anticipated it going into it. So, in my pregame speech to my team, it was, a lot of traditional stuff you hear in any sort of pregame deal. But at the end of the day, I just said, we're going to get no reps. We're going to feel like it wasn't fair. What we have to do is walk away confident that we didn't make any mistakes in terms of execution. And
the best part about Luke is, is the impromptu captain, is he actually gave the speech from Animal House. So as I walk up, all of a sudden I hear Luke screaming, what happened when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? And at that point I realized things that fucking the wheels had just fallen off this thing. And I looked over, I just let him go. He's going to roll. And you know what? I mean, he throws some Rocky quotes in there. There was something about, what is it? Eat lightning, crap thunder. I mean, it was good. It was a collection of movie quotes. I mean, there was some Fast and Furious in there, but all in all, I think people got the gist and we were happy with it.
Listen, a pregame speech without Vin Diesel is not a pregame speech worth giving.
Enough of beating this dead horse, which we love to do. Let's go.
Yeah, what's next?
Hey, going with the whole Rocky thing, Tommy Morrison, rest in peace.
Yeah, 44 years old. Did they release a?
I saw some pictures of him,
yet?
dude. I mean, oh my God.
Did he? Did they release
it didn't even look like the same man.
Wait,
Did they release a cause of death?
I looked at some stuff yesterday online, and they weren't saying.
But he had HIV, so.
Yeah, but he kept denying it. And his girlfriend came out and said it was some other kind of syndrome, but he pretty much looked like he died of AIDS. I mean, if you've seen like a recent picture of him, he was thin, frail,
Well, he originally got tested, and then they suspended his license. He ended up going to jail. When he got out of jail, he had said that it was a false positive, and he ended up getting his boxing license back and fought. So, I can't imagine that if he had been tested positive with AIDS or with HIV, that they would have given him his license back. But maybe they did. I mean, I know he'd had some drug problems and had gone to jail and had some issues. So, I mean, however it kind of goes down. I mean, he, 44 years old is way too young to die.
I agree.
Rest in peace.
Well, all right. So it sounds like we got some more information for Wade's Army.
Yeah. It's that time of year.
What's going on with that, John?
Yeah, it's that time of year where the Power Athlete CrossFit Football Nation champions, what we call our Wade's Wings, or we call them the Power Athlete Nation, to get out there, and what we're really going to call Wade's Army. For those of you guys that are new to this stuff, there was a little boy named Wade DeBruyne who passed away over a year ago. Wade was the son of a gal who went to school with my wife. And while my wife was pregnant, we saw this whole thing kind of unfolding, how, this little boy had gone into the hospital and had contracted this kind of aggressive cancer called neuroblastoma that attacks the nerve tissues in the body. And he contracted neuroblastoma, it went into remission, and the thing about neuroblastoma is if it goes in remission and stays in remission, you're fine. If it comes back the second time, it's pretty much fatal. Well, his came back, and he ends up passing away on November 11th, 2011. And it was pretty crushing, because my wife and I are, obviously pregnant with twins, and, watching this whole thing kind of unfold under Facebook. And the saddest part is, not this saddest part, but just one of the key sad parts, is Wade was a twin. So he had a twin sister. And so, my wife and I, obviously she's pregnant with twins. We're watching this, and here's this little boy who's a twin who's passing away. And it was it crushed us. And he ends up passing away. And they put a foundation together where they were raising money for research on this relatively unknown disease. And my wife asked me, is there something we can do? And I was like, yeah, there's something we can do. So my wife contacted him and said, hey, we want to do a charity deal. And I think it was actually pretty funny. Wade's dad contacted me, and he said, his wife first said, hey, a friend of mine from school wants to do this charity thing and kind of raise some money. He thought, oh boy, big deal. And then when all of a sudden this thing went live, and he realized not only who I was, but who we were and how this whole thing was going, they got pretty excited. So we raised about $18,500 last year, and our goal is to raise more. What we did is we designed a T-shirt, and we sold the T-shirt and donated all profits and proceeds to Wade's Wings. And we're setting it up and going to try to come and double or triple that and try to get as much money as we can. Our goal was to raise $100,000 and as quick as we can for research in the name of Wade DeBruyne. And 2 years old is way too young to have to deal with something like this. And whatever we can do. So we got Tex on the team to really bring this thing home. So I'll pass it off to him, and he'll give the nuts and the bolts of it.
Awesome. Thank you. So we just want to build off of last year's success. And so what we did as Wade's Army is we really embraced Wade's Wings mission. So their mission was to really put a name and a face to neuroblastoma. It's something that not a lot of people know about, although it is kind of the leading pediatric cancer killer. So everyone's heard of leukemia, kind of breast cancer and everything like that. So we just want to really raise awareness for that cancer in particular. So we're just asking all of Power Athlete Nation to kind of become Wade's Army for the next couple months and start to raise money and work up to November 11th, 2013. So that's going to be 2 years after Wade's passed away. And we're going to hold just kind of a workout throughout the country, asking all of Wade's Army to participate. And our only real fundraising last year was John writing a blog post and putting it up on CrossFit Football and saying, hey, donate $30 and we'll give you a t-shirt. So we raised $18,000 just doing that. So we're kind of taking a different approach this year. So the approach that we're taking this year is creating an army. So having individuals recruit others to be a part of a fundraising team versus simply just donating. So we're still going to keep the same workout. We're going to keep that same date as our goal, our target, and then just asking everyone that donates gets a t-shirt, or everyone that donates $30, gets a t-shirt. And so it's how many people can you recruit to your team? How big can you make this? So we're kind of, instead of just asking for one donation, we're asking for recruit more people, make this bigger than cancer. I mean, we want to beat it. We want to stomp it out. So make this big.
That's as a parent of a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, I couldn't imagine having to go through that. I've had friends who've had young ones that they've lost to cancer, or I should say, and one of my former neighbors, his daughter had, successfully beat it, but I know in the back of their minds, kind of like cancer in remission doesn't necessarily mean that it's over.
Right.
And, I'm in, anything I can do to help. I mean, goddamn, yeah, I'll recruit as much people as I can, get my whole fucking gym to do that workout on November 11th. You guys just, give me, tell me what you need and I'll do my best to make it happen on my end.
Yeah, ditto. Whatever Denny just said, ditto. I'll get CrossFit Gwinnett. We'll raise some money.
Steve and Denny, you guys are like me. You guys are parents, and there's a lot of dads out there listening, and it's like, dude, it's like even seeing the story, like, it was amazing how many people send me emails and posted after they read the deal that were like, I was reading this and tearing up. And the funny part is, dude, as I was writing that thing, I was tearing up. I mean, like I'm getting up. Our girls were, still at that same age where they're taking naps and you're getting up, changing diapers, doing this whole thing and trying to write this blog post. And you're just like looking at your kids and, it just crushes you. My wife had another deal. She saw on Facebook, a friend of hers, little boy was born with, he had a congenital defect and a hole in his heart. And they went in and tried to fix it. And when they went in to fix it, they had a chance of scarring in the arteries. And he got out and they thought he was going to be okay. And then they went back and they looked and, the arteries had scarred up and there was nothing they could do. And so little boy's 15 weeks old and they basically brought him home to live his last days at home and took him out of the hospital. And they're like, there's nothing we can do. We can't go back in there and fix it. We can't fix the scarring. The arteries are too delicate. And, I'm reading this thing on Facebook last night and these parents said, have to bring home this 15-year-old or 15-week-old little boy and wait for him to pass away. And I mean, Jesus, I'm just like, but by the grace of God, that's a level of strength that I guess, somebody gives you at the time when you need it. But man, we were reading that last night and crushed me. It just made me realize how much more and how dedicated we are to really, supporting this little boy and, making sure that, nobody forgets who he is and, what we can do as parents and dads and just go out. It's just, no, I mean, if it helps one person, it's worth it. And so, I mean, it definitely hits me home and for you guys too.
It's funny. Luke always says on here, like it's people helping people, but this is almost bigger than that, right? It's heartbreaking to hear. And when, you hear people talk about, oh, I've got problems. And then you read these stories like, no, you don't have problems because you have a hard job or you work long hours or what have you. These are the kinds of things that really matter is your family.
Yeah. I mean, pediatric cancer is, You know, I mean, dude, like it's funny, you know, all these people, like we see all these guys growing the mustaches for, you know, prostate cancer awareness and all that. And I'm always like, dude, anything we can help. I'm like, man, you know, I wish that we could do something to give these kids the chance to live to the point where they might have to get tested to get prostate cancer.
Yeah, to be able to grow like that.
You know, these kids aren't even getting there. So, I mean, it's like, you know, and it's a powerful thing. And then, and I remember, you know, I worked pretty extensively with autism when I was in the NFL. I mean, I would always go out to the, you know, Philadelphia to the charity walks and always try to do my part for autism. And, you know, like seeing these kids and these parents and seeing the strength of the parents and that they were there supporting their children, how happy they were. And it was just always pretty inspiring to me. And then all of a sudden you have your own kids and you realize you're like, dude, I'm just not a dad to my kids. I'm a dad to all these kids. And anything we can do to raise money and help, and you know, we're in. And you know, and I know most of the guys and most of the moms and the different people that are listening to this and follow our site, dude. There were people that were donating like a couple $100, you know, $1,000, saying, "Please send me one T-shirt. Keep the rest. Anything you can do. You know, this is a great cause." So it was really, you know, eye-opening experience. And more importantly, just kind of renewed our faith in people. And, you know, I mean, obviously we kind of joke around. We get bogged down with a lot of the dumb comments and of some of the bullshit of working and doing this job. But, you know, things like this make it all worth it, and definitely renew the fire to go out and create this community and really do what we're doing. So I thank Tex and those guys for putting this together.
I really like the word Army for this, because it's kind of, we're standing up for those that can't stand up for themselves. So we're just banding together, getting that group. And I mean, most of the kids don't even know what they're going through or experiencing. And half their life is spent going through treatment versus just growing up and living it.
Yeah, dude, if I could just kind of share like a story, every year, my older daughter and myself, we go and we do some volunteer work at George Williams College in Williams Bay, Wisconsin. And my aunt, who is part of she calls it the Deerfield Optimist group. This group kind of puts on like a fair. And this fair is, like I said, it's at George Williams College. And there's like a 2-week camp, like a Bible camp that all of the, all the campers are kids who are currently battling with cancer, or the cancer's in remission and they're still part of this group. And they kind of go on this 2-week camping trip, and it ends at this park, and there's like a huge biker rally. A big ride ends there. It's right on the lake. And my daughter and myself, we do like the face painting booth, and these kids come in, and some of them you would never think, they don't look like they have cancer. They look totally fine. And then you would see the ones who had lost their hair and stuff like that. And they're sitting there, and if I'm painting like a little butterfly on their cheek or whatever it is, they're real patient. And then when they turn and look, and I kind of, show them the mirror, and they can see the butterfly or what it is on their face, and they look and they smile. And they kind of like have that moment, like, hey, I'm beautiful, I look great. And even if it's just for a few seconds that they're not thinking about the illness that they have, and they're just like appreciating their own beauty, that's like more than enough payback for me. I mean, the pride and like gratification that I feel in those moments are huge. I can't even really put it into words, and it's easy to kind of walk out of a store in Christmas time and throw a couple dimes in some kind of, bucket and say, yeah, I give to charity. But to actually like participate in an event like this or volunteer in situations like what I'm talking about, that's where the true gratification comes from. You see true strength, not lifting barbells and benching big numbers, but, be a young child having to live a life like that and try to wake up with a positive perspective every day. It's inspiring. Certainly.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So we're planning on getting the site launched by the 9th. So Monday the 9th, it'll give us clean 2 months to kind of hit our fundraising goal and go from there. So we're going to be asking affiliates to participate, to host that workout November 11th, and just Power Athlete Nation parents spread the word. So we've just taken on Wade's Wings mission and really creating a name, neuroblastoma, that everyone recognizes and know how dangerous it really is.
Yeah, it's going to be good. No, we're excited. You guys keep an eye out. And, hopefully the t-shirt design should be launched here pretty fast, and it'll be pretty cool. We got our designer working on it, and the take on last year and everything should be up, and a real cool site to donate. And it's going to be real streamlined this year, so we're pretty excited. So, all right, where we at next?
Awesome.
So just on a side note, I wanted to throw it out there. So the month of September, Luke and I are sitting down and finishing the Power Athlete book. So we've been giving ourselves the next 4 weeks to be able to crunch all the information and put it all together and actually get it out to an editor. So we've been hammering on that. But it was actually interesting. Yesterday, as we were working, we decided we had to go lift some weights. So I took Luke over to a Globo gym, bodybuilder gym, and we did some dumbbell bench. Luke, what would you think? We had a good time? It was interesting. I don't know how many of you guys out there since training in a CrossFit environment have actually gone back to a 24-hour fitness or a bodybuilder type gym and actually observed what's going on. But I definitely recommend it to everybody just to kind of renew your faith in everything. We went in there and we left and realized things could always be worse. We could be doing what those guys are doing and not getting, it was terrible. So what do you think, Luke?
And it's kind of in response to some of
elaborate
the
a little bit by what you mean things can always be worse? Like, what were the kinds of things, or are you leaving that up to the listener to go into a gym and figure it out for themselves?
Well, here it's kind of in response to just some of the, like John said, by nature of the beast, there's a lot of folks who jump into this thing, want to know everything at once, and they try to piece together their own, understanding of what works. And we field email questions on some of the goofiest things. We have people tell us about the new exercises they invent. Remember that guy with the helmet that you jerk off of your head?
Yeah.
And like and
this guy had basically taken a helmet and then built like kind of a pad on it, and was like basically like bringing the bar down to the pad on the helmet and then jerking off of the helmet to work on hip drive and neck strength for being able to drive and explode and hit athletes or hit for football players hitting. It was quite possibly one of the worst things we've ever seen.
And just to kind of barrel forward on the story so I don't drag it out any longer, when we go to these certs, we require you to write programming, and we give you a very specific goal to accomplish with the programming. And people miss so hard because their only exposure to training and strength and conditioning has been CrossFit. And because it works, it does. CrossFit works and traditional CrossFit programming works. But what we talk about at our football seminar is, how do you skin that and scale it back and really optimize the application of that style of programming for an athlete? And it's some very simple guidelines. And for people who haven't read John's application post, it's one of my favorite posts because it just holds so true to what we witness week in and week out. So with that said, that's kind of the frustration that's what fuels some of our frustrations. It's just like, man, people are so misguided within this CrossFit circle. Like if they could just sit back and kind of see what we see. But then you go to a facility like this.
Well, it's interesting. So we roll in and this place is just packed with machines. And we decided, you know what, we got a short time. Let's just do some bodybuilding stuff. We're going to do some dumbbell bench and we're going to do some side raises or something. So I think we did 10 sets of 10, dumbbell bench, trying to get some failure, squeeze it up. Yeah, whatever it worked out. I think we're just going to failure on everything. And it was interesting just sitting around watching people, not only what they do, but, here was the one thing that I observed is we were the only people in there sweating. We were the only people in there that were actually, I think we were doing between 60 and 90 second rest periods, and we were trying to just bang it out as fast as we could because what else would we do? It was interesting. We watched people the entire hour we were there that were on one machine, that were taking probably 10 minutes in between sets. The other day,
each rep took 6 12 seconds. Remember that guy with the cable who was like...
Yeah, doing half rows. So I actually went to the gym the other day, and I was training some leg stuff, and one of the guys in there, one of the guy I call the head meathead, he came over to me and said, "Bro, you got to chill out, man. You're working too hard. You're burning precious muscle." And I looked at him, I was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Dude, you're sweating too much." He's like, "Dude, you're out of breath. You got to take longer rest periods. You're burning up all that precious muscle." And I was like, makes sense. Not really. And, it was just, it was kind of interesting. And then I don't know if you guys saw, I had a couple tweets that I started joking around, like things that you would never hear at a, fitness event, or, things that you would hear outside of a bodybuilding gym. And it was just interesting to hear, I heard one guy be like, "Yeah, I'm about 8 weeks out." I didn't really know what that meant until he started talking more. And I guess he's 8 weeks out from a contest. Or, I also had a guy ask me in the gym, "What did I do for my arms?" Things you'd never hear in a CrossFit gym. Can you imagine walking into a CrossFit gym and be like, "So what do you do for your arms?" People would be like, "What are you talking about?" It was super interesting because I haven't trained in that environment in forever, and actually go in there. And where it came from is I am doing some rehab stuff on my knee and my shoulder, and part of the rehab stuff is they didn't want me to load the joint in the standard movement patterns I've been loading it. So if somebody told you couldn't load your joints in the same movement pattern you've been doing for the last couple of years, you'd probably have to go back and really have to rethink this. And so I was like, well, I'm going to have to find some machines. I'm going to have to find some other stuff. I'm going to have to try to, I'm going to have to use some cables. I'm going to have to do some different things. And I had to get real creative with my own programming. I got to do this for a couple of weeks just to try to rehab some stuff and address some of my weaknesses. And there were some things that I'd left out of my programming that I'd forgotten about that I put back in, but it was good for me to go back in that environment. And it's funny because when we go teach the seminars, we get frustrated. We're like, "Man, this is so, you guys should understand this." And then we went over to this side and we realized how far ahead even the most basic CrossFit gym is. I always love where people are like, "Oh, CrossFit will get you hurt, the bad technique." I've seen worse. I literally, the technique that we saw in there, first of all, I don't know what the fuck people were doing. What they were doing wasn't training.
That guy on the Smith machine with stacked benches with the dumbbells tied around him.
Okay, so this guy set up a Smith machine and he was doing push-ups off the Smith machine with his feet elevated into like a plank, like push-up position. And then he had the belt that you would use for like weighted dips or weighted pull-ups, but he had it like up around his armpits, and then he had like 225s hanging from it, and he was doing like quarter rep push-ups.
And he was kind of like worming around to get it up, so his hips were all over the place, so the dumbbells are swinging. And his training partner is there to
that was his trainer. And his trainer was trying to tell him, he's like, "That's great, that's great."
He's there just to hold the dumbbells from swinging.
And the guy was then trying to convince him that when he can do this movement well, he will obtain some level of fitness.
I couldn't believe it.
I mean, we were literally like in there. There was a guy in there who looked like he was in fairly good shape who was doing box squats that literally should not have been doing box squats. Mm-hmm. I mean, dude, the knee was so far over. I mean, it's just... The problem is that, application and, what people are really missing. Like, there's some pretty big bodybuilders in there. There's a lot of guys that are probably taking a lot of drugs really badly because they look like shit. It's just kind of a weird social environment. What's interesting about a CrossFit gym is the only time people are going to socialize is before and after. You come in early, you warm up, you see some people, you bullshit. The minute people say 3, 2, 1, go, you do your work. And you know what? Yeah. Like, you set a time. This is what we're going to do. This is the amount of volume we're going to do. 3, 2, 1, go. You go and you hammer it out. And you know what? People are supportive. The problem is that what I realize is why the global and why these people are failing. And I said to Luke, I'd love to take a poll of these people. How long have you been training here? Have you made any goals? Do you still look the same? What's the major disconnect? What we realized is that intensity and the ability to attack your training with a ferocity is really the difference between being good, and then just fucking going in there and doing bullshit. And, that's what we've really looked. When we look at our training, we expect a certain level of mindset. You expect, hey, we're going to, and that's really, with the rep max isn't going, you're always pushing because there has to be, some form of, going past what you thought was possible. Just coming in and doing a lat row, moving your hand 2 inches and going slow and controlled that you would never break a sweat. Like it becomes pretty apparent, like really, what happens. I mean, I've never heard anybody come to a CrossFit gym and tell me it didn't work for them. They didn't get any results.
Or it was too easy.
This stuff's too easy.
And we say that to CERT too, because part of what we find, part of one of the limiting factors of being a good coach is that people get too hung up on rewarding effort. And what we say at the gym, or at our gym, and what we say with our clients and what we say at our seminars is like 100% effort is implied. Like when you walk in the doors of our gym at Balboa and you're there to train, I'm not ever questioning whether or not you're trying. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the CrossFit culture too. Like people are trying their hardest. And we really try to push to get out of rewarding effort and start rewarding quality. But then you see this environment where people aren't even I don't know what these people were doing, dude, because they weren't trying, they weren't lifting, it wasn't heavy, it was bad movement, everything was bad. It was just bad.
So what I think we're going to do is I'm going to join for 3 months, and I'm going to bring my iPhone, and I'm going to document some stuff, and I'm going to I'm going to start doing some blog posts on it. And, we've been, I've been working on a bunch of Talk to Me Johnny posts, but one of them is, the physiology of training and really why something like CrossFit works. And, where the Russians kind of didn't take it far enough is they talked about circuit training and that had limited application for GPP. But what they didn't do is, and Dr. Romanoff hit this, right on the head. He said, there was always a transition between GPP training to sport specific training. And, there had to be something else. And what CrossFit's effectively done is they've made the training in GPP into a sport. And, people are doing it and they're pushing the bounds. And, why is it that the standard physiology that we know is, CrossFit's kind of breaking some of the rules. And so I went back and I've been trying to really piece it together. And I'm going to make some leaps and some claims because there's nothing to really back up much of the physiology that we're seeing. And, some guys are getting, some of these CrossFit Games competitors, whether or not who knows what they're taking, if they're taking anything at all. But these guys are getting some phenomenal physical results and they're training at a high level and they're able to do a shit ton of volume. It's genetically selecting. It's pretty exciting. And we're going to try to wrap our heads around it. But, what's amazing to me is when I came, we always train in facilities for other athletes and I trained at Athletes Performance in different places and I was never really exposed to this kind of environment. And actually walking back in there and seeing what people do, Glassman hit it right on the head where he said, bad CrossFit is probably better than what 99% of the people are doing. So much so I kind of wanted to go and hand these people cards and say, hey man, come see us. Like I guarantee even,
dude, when you go into the gym, wear a GoPro.
Yeah,
wear a GoPro, and I'd love to hear some of the comments that people are going to be asking you.
Yeah, dude, I might just put a GoPro on my waist, like a pager or something, and just walk around and see what I can do. But it's interesting. What blows me away is I think people don't really have a template for working out. And this is something that I never really realized is when we go train at these facilities, there was always a coach. What are we doing? We're doing this, we're doing this, and we're doing this. And there was always a mission and a plan. There was never any I'm going to go in there and just fiddle fuck around. And what I realized is that, we provide CrossFit football, we provide a template, we provide an experience, we provide something to compete with. And there's a goal and we move forward. And it's like, there's somebody that has to be kind of the Wizard of Oz designing the stuff behind. What I realized is these people don't have any Wizard of Oz. There's really nothing. People are just going in there, and I guess what they're doing is they're just doing stuff till they get their muscles pumped, or they're doing things until, or they're seeing what other people are doing. And the problem is that when you take a bunch of people into a situation and they're watching who are they necessarily watching? They're watching probably the guy who's the biggest, most jacked dude in the room, and they're watching to see what he does. The problem is obviously there's some certain performance enhancements. There's who knows? So it's like these people are looking, well, it's working for that guy. Why isn't it working for me? And it's because, who knows? But I'm going to go back, because I got to use some different movement patterns, and I got to do some hamstring curls and some things that they want me to do for some rehab stuff. And I'm going to drag Luke back a couple days, and it's interesting. I actually squatted there the other day, and this guy was like kind of blown away. He's like, "Man, I never knew that you were supposed to go that low in a squat." And I mean, I've seen people doing quarter squats. I mean, I saw a guy actually tell me he was doing CrossFit, and his workout was he was doing quarter, like probably just an inch off his chest to his face, push presses, 95 pounds. And then he was doing 25 leg extensions. And then he was doing the landmine, but he was just kind of doing one arm fist pumps with it. And the guy did as many rounds as he could in 30 minutes. And I was like, "So what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm doing this thing called CrossFit. You just grab as many, you just pair up as many exercises as you can, and you do them as fast as you can until failure." And I was like, leg extensions, fist pumps, and quarter-inch push press. Interesting. Go. 3, 2, 1, go, rock it. Was he in good shape?
No. One of the experiments you guys should do is go in and do CrossFit football. Because I've gone into the Gold's gym around here, and when I first started CrossFit, I did it at Gold's, and people look at you. The same experience that you guys had. People come up and be like, "You need to cool out. You need to calm down. Like, you can't. Why are you doing handstand push-ups?" And I'm like, "Well, because they're good for you." And people were like, "No. Just use the dumbbells or the cable machine." It's fun to see people respond to you. The one of the things I want to ask you guys is, how do you go into that place? It's hard for me to go in, and I'm not any kind of elite level coach at any stretch, but you guys are. How do you go in and how do you not let the coach come out of you and be like, "Don't you just want to fix everybody?" Or is it just a good
yeah, I mean, I should have brought cards. The first day I went there, I think we could have pulled probably 10 clients the first day I went in, and it was just from squatting. I think I squatted and I did, it was hilarious. I actually, the reason I went to the gym is we went in there one time because one of our other trainers used to work there, and they had a safety squat bar. And so I was like, "Oh, this place couldn't be that bad." So when I went back in and I needed to do some hamstring curls and some stuff, I was like, "Oh, they got safety squats." So I squatted with it, and I had a couple people come over and tell me, they were like, "We'd never seen anybody use that bar." We were kind of, actually, one guy said he'd never seen anybody use the bar. Then the other guy said he'd never seen anybody free. He's like, "I'd never seen anybody free squat with that bar." Because people with safety squat usually hold on to handles and sit back with it. I was like, "Really? So you put the safety squat bar and then you hold on to handles and you squat holding on to handles?" He's like, "Yeah, that's the only way I've seen people do it. I've never seen anybody free squat with it." So I thought that was interesting. And so I did some squats with it, and I did some, what else is good is they have a slide board. So I had to do some slide board lunging and just some other different movement patterns that I just normally haven't done. So I got to try to do some rehab, but it was just super interesting to have you start training and then have people come over and start asking you questions. And you're looking at them and you're like, "Man, where do you get your knowledge? Like, what are you doing?" I hate to beat a dead horse and say, what are you training for? But more importantly, what are you doing? There was a guy in there yesterday. There was an old guy doing dynamic bench with mini bands, and he had it was the bar with 2 10s on the other side.
No, they were smaller than that. No, but they were 2.5 pound plates.
Yeah, so he probably had 65 pounds on the bar, and he was doing dynamic triples, 8 sets of triples, and I was so tempted to go over and ask him what he was doing, but I just went on with my life. It just seemed like too much of a fucking ridiculous deal.
In Playtech, what's funny is one of my best friends came out to California, lived with me for a few months, and trained at the gym. And when he moved out, he had kept training. It became part of his life, and he started training at just a Gold's gym. And he's like, "You need to get out of your gym and go train in the wild, man." He's like, "You are going to see some crazy things, and it's going to, do exactly what it's doing for John and I." He's like, "It's going to recalibrate your perspective on what people think works, and you're going to meet some very interesting people, probably get some clients, and it'll make for some great material." So I think I'm going to go with John for maybe how long are you going to be there? A month and a half?
Yeah, I'm going to try. This is what I also realized. I went in there and they were I think it's $50 a month or something. And so I said to the guy, I was like, "No, I don't want to pay that." He was like, so I kind of did a little Jedi mind trick, which people have used on us for years at the gym. And so I ended up negotiating it down. It was like 3 months for like $100. So I originally wanted like 6 weeks, but I ended up getting 12 weeks for $99. So I was like, okay, I'll train here for $33 a month. But the problem is the guy's like, well, I can't give you a towel. And I'm like, well, that's fine. I'm going to sweat all over your equipment then. He was like, fine. I'm like, okay. So we went in there. The thing is that the gym would be an amazing CrossFit gym. It's got to be at least 12 or 13,000 square feet. It's got a huge roll-up garage door. It's just a big-ass warehouse. And it's right in a pretty big part of Costa Mesa, like right on the main drag. And I'm like, dude, I would love to buy this place on the weekend or lease it on the weekend and just clear out all the crap and just put in a bunch of CrossFit gym and have people show up and be like, so you're here for the noon class? Awesome. The people would be like, what are we doing? Being like, just go sit down over there. We'll get to you in a second. I mean, it really is funny that, I think training with some high level athletes and doing what you do, and you kind of get stuck in your little box and you know what works, you know what you're doing, and you kind of are in this brain trust. And, we kind of live in this little world and, we travel, we teach at these gyms, we train at our gym. And, we kind of like, when we go teach the seminars, we get on people like, you need to have more information. You need to have more knowledge. You need to do this. Why don't you guys know this? And we kind of really hammer them and want them to be better. And then you go back out into a global gym environment like we're doing, and you realize you're like, dude, people are doing things in there that you shouldn't be doing. And, they have no concept, and there's really nobody. I mean, here's gym membership. What are you doing? No idea. I filmed a great video of a guy doing what I like to call butterfly squats. He was actually coming to the bottom of the squat and his knees were caving so bad it looked like his knees were butterfly floating back and forth. And I actually filmed it, and because I was so amazed, I couldn't believe anybody was doing that. And his trainer was like, "Great, that's great. Just keep moving the knees like that."
Wow! Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I mean
that's like trainer abuse or something. I mean, that's going to hurt people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, assuming that he doesn't have 2.5s on the bar.
Oh no, he was just doing the bar. He was 45. It was just a muscle day. It was just a pump day. So I mean, but it's pretty interesting. So we're going to go back and who knows? Maybe we'll be able to help some people. Maybe it'll give us a little bit more perspective. It's really strange too to actually use some machines after only lifting free weights for last 5, 7, 10 years of my life to actually go and throw some machines in. And I wasn't kidding. Literally hamstring curls on one of those hamstring curl machines are probably the worst exercise you could ever do. I literally, I can deadlift 600 pounds, and doing some sets of 15 on the hamstring curls made me so sore I couldn't even bend over for like 2 days. So I was like,
here's the thing though. What's the transferability of the hamstring curl, right? I mean, do you think your deadlift went up?
No. All I did was made me really sore to go over. But what the doctor wanted me to do is he wanted me to try to get some more motion in my knee. And so it was just more about some, being able to squeeze and kind of hold in that position at the top. And so they had some things.
So for you, it was a rehabilitation exercise. But I mean, for the average Joe, all it does is like make your hamstrings swole and sore. And I mean, the transferability of that exercise, I think, would be minimal to the big lifts.
Yeah, who knows? The other one, too, that I observed that I didn't realize is that what most people do is, at least at this place, is they come in and they usually hit some form of single arm, like some form of unilateral single jointed movement to pre-fatigue the muscle. So guys come in, they start like on like one arm tricep extensions, and they do that for 20 minutes. And then they go in and they get into their bigger movements. So I realized that there's this kind of idea that you have to pre-fatigue the muscle. And I still I had to do some research into the bodybuilding terms about pre-fatiguing, but I still don't necessarily know how that applies, where we're going to have to work through some of this physiology with bodybuilding. But you know what? The bodybuilding stuff is interesting. We say it at the seminar. The bodybuilders have effectively found a way to make a bigger muscle. And if we're trying to put on weight, you got to know some bodybuilding, and you got to find some hypertrophy stuff, and you got to know how to do it. And we just happen to do it with big horsepower, multi-jointed movements, and the bodybuilders tend to work for some more aesthetics, and they do some more single jointed movements. But I think what's interesting too is that maybe there's something to be learned in that, maybe there's some significant lagging body parts on some people. Like, maybe, I've seen some girls that we've trained with who's, big quads, big butts, no hamstrings. So maybe there might be something where throwing some hamstring curls or some single jointed kind of movements in might actually pay some dividends for some people. I mean, what people seem to always ask when my bench is crap, should I work on my triceps? Yeah, I mean, I like doing tricep push downs and some curls with the bands, like we were talking, like we'll jump out to here in a second. Maybe there's something to addressing some weaknesses by, adding some single jointed movements. So I don't know, but obviously it would be individual to each person, but it's definitely amusing. It's definitely kind of recharged just a little bit. I think we should bring some GoPros and film some more days in there, and I think you guys would get a kick out of it.
Heck yeah.
Hey, just to finish that conversation, you remember the bodybuilder Mike Metzer from the 70s?
Yeah. Well, he was the one that really the high intensity interval training. He was the big hit guy.
Remember? Yeah. Well, okay. So like in the 90s, he starts coaching Dorian Yates. One set to failure. This high intensity, going from like Nautilus curls to whatever, short rest periods. I mean, it was almost like he was trying just like some basic CrossFit principles in a bodybuilding setting. Well, and it seemed like he only made it work for himself and Dorian Yates. I mean, I never heard of any other.
Well, did you ever watch the Blood and Guts, which was Dorian Yates' training video?
Yeah, and his partner Leroy. Come on, Yates.
He did show one set to failure. He did one set to failure, like his top end set. But the guy had like 50 warm-up sets that were all like super heavy. Like I remember he did like his final, he's like, yeah, he's just going to do one set to failure. And it was like he did like 585 for a set of 10 or 12 on the bent rows. But the guy did like 225 for 30, 315 for 25. He did like 405 for like 4 sets of 10. And then he did like 495 for one. I mean, the guy did so much volume that he was building up. Yeah, he had one peak set. But, Tom Incledon, when we were kind of talking about some of the bodybuilding stuff and really muscle growth and really how you kind of drive adaptation and really force adaptation is it has to be to failure. You have to have the point where the small muscle fibers and every, systems are failing, things are turning on, that if you never push the boundaries of what you can and can't do, you'll never force the body into adaptation. And I mean, you can go back and look at Arnold's deal where he said, if I could do 4 reps, I needed to be able to do the 5th rep. If I could do the 5th rep and I had a 6th rep in the tank, then the 5th rep didn't mean anything. It was the 6th rep. And if I had a 7th rep in the tank, it wasn't the 6th rep, it was the 7th rep. And it was kind of one of those things that you look at and you're like, okay, so is the reason that the CrossFit is so successful is that people are literally doing these movements to failure, that they're going to the point they're pushing the bounds of what they could and couldn't do, that it's this level of intensity, whether or not you're doing barbell thrusters with intensity of like, I'm going to go and do this barbell thruster until I can't do another barbell thruster, or is it something like the bodybuilders where I'm going to do this weight until I can't do this weight anymore, and then I'm going to try to do one more. If I can get one more, I'm going to do one more. And I think that's where I'm really starting to kind of understand some of the, the lactic acid threshold and really the physical response from some of this stuff, whether it's the training, that there has to be, you look at the best guys in the world, there has to be something where they're pushing it to failure. There's an overload principle. You're doing more than you thought that you could, and you're doing one more past what you thought was possible. And I think that's what CrossFit is naturally breeding in with this, hey, we're going to do this as fast as you can. You're going to do it. And because people go until they implode. Like I've watched people do, I remember the first time I did Fran, I did 21 reps, 21 pull-ups in under a minute. And then it took me 4 minutes to recover to be able to get to set 50, the 15-15. So, that really becomes the stimulus. Like, are you doing these movements? You're moving at such a fast pace that you're going to utter failure, and then people implode and are laying on the ground. That's what I think is really the secret to this stuff. And I think the people in the bodybuilders, like you said, Dorian Yates and Mike Metzner, that were getting great results, were training short rest times. They were pushing it, force reps, forcing the body to failure, and pushing, and handing some great tonnage, and doing it with a diet and obviously some extracurriculars, a lot of sleep, and they were training like they needed to train. So when you go into like Luke and I going into that commercial setting and seeing the people that were getting results versus the people that weren't, the biggest thing wasn't the movements. It wasn't the sets. It wasn't the reps. It was the level of intensity at which they were attacking the movements. That's what I think is what's like just from just seeing it, like going from like this CrossFit environment where we train at CrossFit football, we teach the seminars, we see people fucking killing themselves to get better. And you go into here where people are like, stop working out so hard. You're going to burn muscle. And then you're looking at the guys that are really getting some good results, are the guys that are fucking literally like sucking the marrow out of their workout, trying to crack the bone and eat it, more so than the guy that's like, oh, I'm just going to go over here and do this. I don't want to sweat too much. I'm just here to be healthy and this and that. And I think that's, something that we really take for granted. Like Luke said, we expect that you're going to give me 100% effort. I expect that you are going to try and kill yourself to do this. Like that's just expected, and that's the culture we breed. And I think that's the difference between the CrossFit gym and that, and why people get the results and why people don't.
Well, and just to sort of add to that, it's not just like you being the big U, like coaches or gym owners that expect 100%. When you put it into a CrossFit environment and you build that community, what I found, at least in our gym and the gyms I've been around, is the other members expect 100%. And the other members push you in ways, I could geek out on psychology stuff, but social facilitation is a powerful thing. And when you're working and you're getting that 6th rep, maybe I have a 7th, and somebody is in your face saying, do not let go of that bar. All of a sudden you do things that you didn't think your body could do. At the end of the day, you're pushing that threshold higher. And so it's, I think in CrossFit, you become accountable. I don't know if your experience at the Globo gym was everybody's wearing headphones and nobody talks unless a guy is hitting on a girl. That's been my experience at the Gold's gym.
We saw a lot of dudes in there that it looked like a social club that were kind of like slapdicking around, like talking with each other in between sets. And then there's a bunch of guys that have headphones on. And then there's, there's a weird kind of social underpinning. And what was interesting was when I was in there training the leg stuff, I was flying in between I was literally pushing it so hard. I'm not really going to have an opportunity to talk to somebody, but it was interesting to have people come over and ask me some questions about some stuff. And like the whole time I'm looking at my watch and I'm like, dude, you're fucking slowing me down. I got a small window to do this shit. It's almost like you want to hand them your card and you're like, hey, come talk to me on your dollar. This is my time to come train. So, I think the level of accountability, and 2, that really pushing. And then, if you put people into doing basic, and I'm not going to use the word functional because it's been beat to death, but literally basic compound movements, and you're asking them to push the levels of what they can and can't do, get stronger, bigger engine in this, and, and then obviously cutting out the crap and allowing them to eat a better diet, and then, adding frequency to the training effect by showing up and doing it and actually having some accountability. Honestly, I think results come. I think why people mostly fail with these things is one, the lactic acid, response, when you're training to failure like that for a heavy compound movement is much different than for a single jointed small movement. So, and then people are hopefully, if they're loading their training properly, then they're reducing that cortisol effect. I mean, something to think about is, people have to train to their level of adaptation. Somebody like a Rich Froning can do 7 or 8 workouts a day, and he's probably not going to get a huge cortisol response because he has effectively loaded his volume to the point where he can handle that. Now, if you take somebody else and all of a sudden they get thrown into that environment, dude, they're going to be in a state of utter fucking overtraining and panic, and their body's going to go into shutdown, and they're going to have some problems. So I think what we're really seeing is that this program has been around long enough that now you're seeing people that have effectively started at step 1 and gone to 10 and are able to handle these pretty significant volumes and still get, a pretty potent androgenic response.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
So it's interesting, but I mean, I definitely, I want to take all of our coaches and just be like, hey, we're going to go over and train at this place a couple of days a week, just to have you guys, get out of your bubble and see what you're doing. And I think it will renew your passion and, more importantly, give you more perspective on, the people that walk through the door. and I hate to use the analogy because it's been beat to death too, like the whole Fight Club mentality. It's like, dude, like people are looking for something different. Luke and I talked about it yesterday. Like we were looking for something different. I was looking for a community. I was looking for a group of people that like easy would no longer suffice. And I found it. Luke had done a triathlon and, got invited to go to a CrossFit gym and thought I'm in good shape, and then got smashed by some elderly women. And and then realized I didn't know what fit was. And, we went to these situations and thought, I'm a professional athlete. I go to a CrossFit level 1 and I look over and dude, I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but I went to my CrossFit level 1 on day 2. It was like a med ball clean burpee workout. And I was in the second group, and the first group, as they were getting done, like the last guy to finish, everybody like went around and they were cheering for him. And like, there was like housewives and guys and dudes. And the last guy was like he was just a pretty muscular black dude. And literally like these house moms are around cheering for him. And at which point I got this like sick feeling that like I was going to be the last one and some like housewife is going to be cheering for me and I'm going to be fucking humiliated. So I go do the workout and I'm literally fucking killing myself out of the mere fear. And I look over and there are these two ladies that were probably in their 30s or 40s that were literally ahead of me in the workout. And I was like, mother of God, I'm not losing to these fucking ladies. I literally crushed myself because I didn't want to have them come over and have to congratulate me. And you know what? Like it teaches you something about, and something I had not understood in my training. Just because I knew I needed to lift heavier weights, I needed to run as fast as I could. I needed to do everything to be able to push the boundaries of what I could. But I never really had kind of seen it in that way just because I hadn't been involved in that environment. So it was great for me. And it really kind of showed me that, dude, you got to have a level of intensity when you walk into this shit.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let's talk about submissions to the Power Athlete headquarters. AJ Belch, great name. That's right up there with Mike Fart and Joan Queef. I'm sorry, AJ. I'm sure growing up with a name like that, it's not the first time you've been harassed with that. So he's asking.
Felcher? What about Ida Felcher? That was a better one.
That's true, right? What's that from?
Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber, yeah. Man, I got to get up on my movie trivia. All right. I'm an assistant coach with a college football team, and I'm fortunate enough to have some input into the strength and conditioning side of stuff too. I've seen a lot of people post about using bands to do some extra assistance work. I think Professor Booty is pretty fond of banded bis and tries. Is that true, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like banded tricep pushdowns and working biceps. Only when I tore my bicep tendon, it was part of my rehab, and I just feel like for me it helps create like a part of like a more stable shoulder to elbow complex. So yeah, and nothing wrong with having some arms.
Right. So he finishes, he says, is there any advantage to bands over dumbbells, or is it just an issue of availability?
It's going to be a different stimulus. I think the stimulus of the band is interesting in that it has kind of a constant eccentric load. So as you're pulling it, like the band obviously is at one point is not as hard. And then as you get to the top of the contraction, obviously the band will be more stretched and must be harder. And then as you go to rebound and obviously go into that eccentric load, there will be more kind of constant eccentric load. So I think the band has benefit. I actually, when I do the bi and tri stuff, I actually superset the standing banded curls with hammer curls. And I find that heavy hammer curls are one of my staples in my training. And I just feel like the hammer curls have directly been very, very positive for helping me with a bigger bench press. So I do the heavy dumbbell curls, and then I use the standing band curl or the standing curl or bands, the green bands, and I do like little blowout sets. So I might do like a set of 10 at like 100 pounds with the hammer curls, and then I'll go over and I will do the standing band curls until I cannot straighten my arms, until my biceps blow out, and then I'll rest for like 30 seconds to a minute, and I'll go back, I'll do 10, and then I come over. So I kind of use them both. I would never prefer one over the other, but I think it's just another training stimulus and another way to attack different things. So my answer to him would be yes, do them both.
Tex, you got anything to add to that one? Did we lose Tex?
His arms aren't that big. Don't worry about him.
No, I was in the restroom. So we're on AJ's question.
Yeah.
Yeah, mix it up. I mean, I had the hammer curls like John. John and I talked football training program a while back, so I threw in the kind of using CrossFit football as a shell and threw in all these kind of extra stuff, and my bench is back to going up. So I threw in the hammers. I'll throw in the bands too. Don't have any personal experience with it, but I can't see how it can do any harm.
Nice. All right, gentlemen. Well, that puts us at about 60 minutes. Tex, thanks for joining us. And John, you're awesome. You're the man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for being on as well. And if there's nothing left, that's it for episode 24.
Cool. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Cool.
Yep.